Hi, at the beginning we are building a frame loom. We take a wooden frame, you can use some stretcher bars. You can mark, like here with a marker, holes. They should be in the same, there should be the same distance between the nails. Here we are having 4 nails to an inch. So every quarter of an inch you use a marker and make a little dot, and after that you use a small nail and a hammer and hammer it in. It doesn't matter how far in it goes, but they should be a little bit even so that the whole row sticks up, maybe even. If it doesn't, it's really not that important that it is too even. If there is a difference, it still works, but they have to be looking out, because then we are threading our warp yarn around those. So you can, if you want to, you can put a knot in the yarn and tie it around, and then you go from one nail to the opposite nail. You go around the nail and you do the next nail on the opposite side, and you do it till you come to the end. When you come to the end, we pretend this is the end. I would just wind it around. When you put the warp on, you want to make sure that it's not too tight. It needs to be a little bit flexible so that we can put our tools, which we are using for weaving, through the warp thread without that it starts, that the tension is too strong and it rips. Here you can wind it a couple of times around, then on the other nail at the end. You can take the scissors, and you should make, in weaving, scissors, you will need scissors, but they are not your friend, because if they are too close to your weaving, by accident, when they are open, they might cut your warp thread. It's not the end of the world, but it's a bother to fix it. So here at the end, I just tie it with the knot, and if I feel I need another one, you do another knot, just so that it's stable. Okay, so for right now I'm taking this out again because we have already our warp here, and the first thing what we want to do is we want to stabilize our warp, and using the warp yarn to put a couple of rows in. I'm just taking this out. It's not doing it too well. Just cutting it off. I'm leaving it here right now. Okay, so you don't really, when you start weaving, you have some of these tools which are called tapestry shuttles, needles, and it has an eye just like a sewing needle. You put it through and you wind the thread, the cotton thread, the same thread like your warp on it. Then you use a knitting needle or another, just a wooden stick, which is sharp on one side. It looks like a pencil, and you go on the warp over, under, over, under, over, under the whole row. Like this. When you come to the end, you, if possible, if your stick is wide enough, you let it rest on the frame and it opens up, and this is what is, in weaving terms, it's called the shed. So you have a nice shed, and it's like a triangle from the edge of the warp. You use now the yarn which we put on our shuttle, and you pull it through. The shed is the widest, closest to the stick, so that's where I would put the shuttle through. And you easily just let it go. You always want to have like a triangle. The reason you want to have the yarn in the weft loose is so that the warp doesn't come in like in a trapeze, but that you keep the size of the warp of the weaving. Then you use the comb, and in weaving term it's called beading it in. You have this little end here, so what you want to do is you go over the first one and then you use the same row with the stick still in here, you pull it through. You remove the stick, you take the beader and you bead it in. The next row you use the stick again, and this time where you went over you go under. You just do the opposite one what you have done before. So here is over, so I go under this one, over this one. You see, you were over here, now you go under. And you do it with the row, for the whole row. Like this again. You release some of the string here. You You unwind it. I must not have wound it correctly, otherwise it shouldn't be so difficult. You take the shuttle, you pull it through. Okay, like this. We have our triangle again. You remove the stick. You use the comb and you beat it in. If you have a little bit too much yarn or it looks too loose, you can always pull it in a little bit. But make sure that the outer thread of your warp is still vertically, that it doesn't go in a triangle, that it doesn't get too close to the other, too tight. We do 4 rows of this, and I show you on the other side where we have done it already. I'm turning the loom around. It looks like this. When you use this loom, a homemade loom in a frame with nails in it, you might consider that you want to use the frame as part of your weaving. I'm turning it around, and that's what it looks like on this side. So when I've woven these stripes of colors, I wove them so that the colors in the paper showed up on the other side. Since it's printed only on one side, on this side where I am weaving, it's white. If I turn it around, there is the color. It's a consideration. What I didn't mention before, if you want to put a design inside, it's a good idea to have a drawing ready to put underneath. Here is a drawing which, is very detailed. If you are a beginner, do just a few shapes or curves. It's easier to work. On the other hand, you can also, we have markers here. You can mark on the wool. So if you don't want to weave every small detail, you can use the marker and draw on the wool. Your drawing should fit underneath the loom. It should look like this. This is a little bit, oops, it's hard to see. This is a little bit larger, so you're missing here the edges, but the idea is to get the whole piece underneath. You can weave with almost anything you find. This is paper, this is raw wool, and here we have thread. And you can combine these elements. I show you how you can combine them. There are different ways to connect them if you work with 2 different colors. We're again doing over under. This time I'm just using the needle because I'm just doing it partial. And here the end again. I am going over there, but I keep it in the same shed like this. Okay, this is what it looks like. We can do one more. You don't have so much. What I would prefer you would avoid doing is taking the scissors and cutting, because you could easily cut some of the warp thread. Okay, and we don't really want that to happen. So as another fiber, I just use raw wool. Here's a little bit green, and I come from this side over, under, over, under to the center. Of it. You see here they are meeting. Here I'm just going, put this around, stuck it in. Here they are meeting, our two different fibers. You're using again the comb, and you see how loosely it's in, so I don't need the triangle here. I put it tightly together. And so that I don't have a hole here, I twist the green, I turn it around the yellow yarn. And then I am going, what I can do is I can also put a diagonal line in. So that means I start here with the next under, this time again the opposite from the one before, under where it was over, okay, and here to go a little bit further, I use the needle and I go here over, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. So these, it looks like a chain and it's very stable in there. The next row I can put, since I don't have a drawing underneath, I just make my design up as I go along in a very playful way. I'm going further on the green. Keep my slack, take the green, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. You see how I have now more yellow-orange compared to green. It's like a diagonal line. I am here, I twisted it, no, I did not twist it around, I thought I had, so I put the green underneath the yellow-orange, I go over, and then I want to go even more of a diagonal line. I go here, the next one, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. There. I use the needle, so I started here, so I need to go here, over, there, under. If you work on a small frame loom, especially this size, needles work great, especially these plastic needles, you don't hurt yourself. My triangle is back, I'm pulling it together, and there we go.